Can you talk a little bit more about this statement?
Exactly from what I got through telling you. He saw this. I am not telling you any documents, written down documents. Why did they do this? Now, they called it chart. They knew the chart would come. If, there was always this if. And so they were afraid of that day, is what I'm saying. In my father's story, if at the beginning of the book, he starts off saying, he would hear his father always saying, over and over, if they don't unite, they're going to eat our heads. When the Tashnags came to Petty, again my grandfather got scared. He says they're too militant. He was afraid that the militancy was going to create a problem. The Tashnags changed the students' names. My father was called Hampartsum. They changed him to, what's his name? Kaspar's name is, the two. Popkin. They changed Kaspar's name to Popkin, and my father was, Rushdie. No, that's my father's name.
Those are the Turkish names.
Oh, yeah, those are the Turkish names. Yeah, so my father was Popkin, and my, Kaspar was Popkin.
But Sarah,
and I forgot what my father's name.
All this that you've collected, how does that, in your mind, how does that prove that genocide occurred?
I'm not proving that genocide occurred. I'm proving what was done. Now, what did Lampkin say? What is done? If this thing is done, we should call that thing that is done a genocide. Do you get it? It went backwards. The thing had to happen first, and then somebody put a name to it. And it was genocide. This is what I'm saying. My father is telling you what was done. And now, you just have to realize when you're reading this is one kid, what he saw. Now, there were thousands of kids roaming the street, incognito Turk, or incognito Armenian. And they saw things. Now, what I'm also doing, what I'm really happy, and I'm saying, I would bet that nobody else has this collection. I have at least 3 or 4 people that have been around. They have their memoirs, and they were around again where my father was, and they describe the exact thing that happened, same time, same place, but another guy is putting it in his memoir. And I have, a connection of that. And there was something just in my mind.
How about Hayakawa? The word is not the thing? That's what you want?
No, I just said it, though.
That's okay.
Same time, same people. It has to do with that.
Is it the proving?
Oh, yeah. If somebody, who is not near my father, he's in Chicago, and he's writing his memoir, and his daughter-in-law, 100 years later, has it translated, and she sends it to me, and I'm reading it. And in that whatchamacallit, a memoir, Gopoyan's memoir, the beginning, he says, this all began during the time we were cultivating the vineyards. The CHitjian's vineyards was one of them. How does my father start his book? The beginning of this genocide is my father said that they were at the vineyard cultivating the vines. It was during early spring. They're cultivating their vines for the following year. And my grandfather tells my father, in 2 years from now, we're going to have a good crop. The guy is just planning for 2 years later. And so on their way home, some guy is running from the village. Mardiros, don't go back. They're picking up the Armenians. So my grandfather runs to the Dersim. That's how it all began.
So given the fact that you have multiple stories that intersect and different people, there are diplomatic documents, there's so much.
At least 4.
There's so much evidence.
They're just little incidences. This is just at the vineyard.
So if you take that and you add multiple documents over the years and everything that's going on.
I don't have one date or a document.
No, that's fine. I'm just talking about the totality of everything that's been produced about the incidents that occurred in 1950. So despite that evidence, why do you think that the Turkish government still denies the genocide?
Well, it's a brutal thing to admit. These people, I don't know, Lavan Marashan once was telling me about who runs Ankara. He says there's 3 levels. The deep state and then something and something. So I don't know the level of fierceness. The Turk who's not gonna, is gonna put up a fight. And then these people, how do you approach? What do you approach? The makeup of Turkey. They themselves are in division. And I think the majority of the people live, on the lower level. They try to ignore, the deep state business. And so, that's my lack of knowledge about the deep state, but it seems to me what Levin was saying is right. There's these various levels of their government. And one is still with a mentality. Why do they stifle their journalists? Turkey has the more stifled journalists than any country in the world. Why? You don't have to go further than that. What are they afraid of? Bring it out. Let them talk.
If you don't mind, I'm going to go back for a second, Sara.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to ask you the same question. And I'm going to say, why have the Turks denied it? And what impact do you think that it's had on both Armenians and Turks?
Why they deny it? You know what I think, and this is a simple answer, and it makes sort of sense in a way. The Ottoman Empire is what, they are in their mentality. The Ottoman Empire. And gradually, I'm not too privy of how the part of Europe, I guess Bulgaria, Romania, was cut off towards Europe. I've not read that yet, but that's cutting away from the empire. And then that was, where did I want to go with that?
You said in their minds they're the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah, so they also have this thing with the West. In Istanbul, or even in Malatya, where they were taking fashions and means of daily life from Europe. So they wanted to be in that category. They wanted to be recognized as like Europeans. And so that's one part of them. And then the other, when they saw, the slicing away, and I think, when I kept hearing, and two of my uncles came here before the charts. Some guys would go back, and some people had come 100 years before, and they had gone to the universities. They had learned about the American Revolution. That's where one of the dangers were. Then they went back. See, it was the Tashnak party that came to Petty and renovated it. They got a clock. They got desks. Before they were sitting on the floor, they had no clock. So renovations. And the new principal said, enough with the religion, crying with the religion. We got to, get arms. I don't know exactly how he's saying that, but I have the speech there in the book.
So the fact that you know all this so well, right, and you've spent years on it, do you think that you would be doing the things that you're doing right now if the genocide never occurred?
Would I be interested in, as if they were born in, they came from France? Aren't you interested in what's going on in France? I mean, we have a good connection with France and what's going on with France. Would I be doing this? In other words, would I be writing their memoirs, their experience, writing your father's story? I mean, a lot of people, I guess, write the parents' stories, even though they didn't, it's just a regular story. Everybody has a story. Just to record that, maybe I would.
Can you share with us, because we skipped over it, we never caught it. Can you do the cowtail switch story?
Yeah. When at UCLA, when I was taking, it was child lit. And it was at a time when I wasn't involved with the Armenian genocide. And so the various stories that we had to read. Well, we read 10, 20 stories. I remember two pertinent ones for me. And that one was the cowtail switch, and one was about the Native American. The cowtail switch was where, very simply put, there was a leader who had 3 sons. And he owned all the vast land that your eye could see. He owned it, and he showed that his ownership by a switch that he carried in his hand. That showed this land belonged to him. So one day he goes out just to check out his things. And he doesn't return that night. And the mother asks the sons, your father didn't return yet. And they didn't think too much of it. Sometimes he would come home later the next day. And And then a day, and then 2 days go by. A week goes by. Then years are going by. Then a couple centuries went by. And nobody's asking, where's my father? Then all of a sudden, 200 or 300 years later, a baby boy is born. And the first noise that came out of his mouth was, where is my father? And then the sons wake up and they think, yeah, we had a father. Where is he? And one sneakily says, I'm going to go alone and wake him up, and he'll give me the switch because I made him alive. And he goes and he gives blood to his father, but the father doesn't wake up. He comes home, and says, I couldn't do it. So the other boy says, I'll go. I will get the switch. And he goes and he gives him breath. And he comes home, and that didn't work. And then the other son, I forget what the other son was. Or I think it was the soul, and that didn't work. And then, no, I think with the soul, when he gives him the soul, he comes back. Now, he's back, and the three boys are waiting. The guy that brought him back says, he's going to give it to me. And the father passed him up. And they said, okay, he needed the blood, so he's going to give it to me. Father passes him up. And then they say, okay, he needed to breathe. And that woke him up. Father passed him up. They look around. Who's he going to give it to? Father looks around and hands it to the baby. Why? Why are you giving it to the baby? What did he do for you? He remembered me. He said, where is my father? I wouldn't be here now if he didn't ask that question. 200-300 years go by, and you haven't come after me. You get it? Never forget. So that's my mission, and never forget, hoping what I'm doing, this will go into eternity. I will never forget, and my legacy will never forget. I never had kids. This takes its place. So this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, not to forget. Now, the other fable that I never forgot, read many fables, read many things to my kids, but the one that I never forgot, very simple, the Native American, when God was creating them, he had his dough, and he cuts out models of their bodies, puts it over the fire to bake, and brings it back, and it's white. And he said, okay, it's not done yet. Then puts it back into the oven and leaves it there for a longer time to be just right, brings it back, and it's black. And that wasn't any good, so he makes another batch. Puts it in there, and it comes out, and it's red. He knew exactly the temperature. Well, white was too soon, black was too much, and it came out just right. It was red. And that's the Native Americans' fable. How could you forget that? And that is, see, the just rightness is, the Armenian is just right? In other words, he's identifying as being red. I identify as being Armenian, and that's just right.
So let's cut for just a second. Sara, we only have